Again, the gap between what employers expect and what higher education institutions produce remains a huge concern. Stats released yesterday show that at least 3.4 million young South Africans are not employed. How much of this is because they lack critical skills? Well, finding out and to help us understand this picture is my colleague, fellow eNCA and reporter here at eNCA, Heidi Giokos. She's been talking to officials from the Human Sciences Research Council and Universities South Africa. Very important people indeed in this conversation. Heidi, good afternoon to you. Shocking, of course, the unemployment figures coming out yesterday. Many questions asked as to what is government doing about it. But also graduates are sitting for months, sometimes years, for years without jobs.
Yes, certainly, and I think the big question here, Bradan, just looking at those figures that came out yesterday, the majority of the youth in this country are unemployed, and what's even more worrying is a lot of them have also given up and have actually just stopped looking. But if you have a graduate that has studied for 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, and they are looking for jobs, sometimes they aren't hired on the basis of the fact that they don't have the necessary skills or experience. And this is why a broader conversation needs to be had with higher learning institutions as well as government to say what is actually needed. So the big question here that's also come out from the recent unemployment figures is whether or not there's a disconnect with the skills that are actually needed and with what young people are actually studying. So if you have a number of people studying, for example, course A, but government actually needs you to study course B because this is what the job market requires of you and requires, this is where you'll actually find a job. What happens there? How do you force people into studying, for example, engineering when they actually want to study arts or anthropology or English? And this is definitely something that universities understand there is a disconnect, but you know, there needs to be a conversation of how do you actually deal with this problem. There was a study done, and you're going to hear what the university's SA CEO has to say about this. There was a study that was done before COVID-19 that 6% of graduates contribute to the overall unemployment figure. And that has now, of course, gotten even worse because of COVID-19. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem as though there's a solution to this. But let's listen to what university's SA CEO had to say about that.
Clearly, there appears to be a shortage of people in the in the engineering sector, in the IT sector, and so on. And on the other hand, it might well be that we are producing too many graduates in areas where kind of a faltering economy, if you like, they won't absorb. Like, so generally speaking, people with good BAs get absorbed because there's a lot of job opportunities in the for example, you know, in the area of advertising and so on. So it's very likely, in fact, that what we have is a mixture of the two. That one, on the one hand, the economy is simply not producing enough jobs, but on the other hand, that maybe there's a mismatch between what universities are producing at least in terms of graduates and what the labor market needs.
Now, Heidi, finally, I understand there's also a concern that sometimes graduates might have the theory and the degree and that certificate in their hands, but no experience, and then they are not hired.
Yes, a huge problem that universities are picking up, and we actually did speak to the Human Science Research Council regarding this very concerning matter. And what we've been told is that this is where the huge problem comes in. So somebody could have studied, they have the theory, they have the knowledge, but they don't have the skills and the practical experience. And oftentimes they are not hired on that basis, which at the end of the day just exacerbates and contributes to the massive youth unemployment rates that we are seeing. But how is this problem solved? And that's what we need to focus on. And the Human Science Research Council is saying that yes, people often get skilled in university, but they don't have that practical experience. And this is where government needs to come in, create those internships, but also the private sector to allow for people to be hired even if they don't have that experience, because they will eventually gain that experience. We all have to start somewhere. So this is why there's so much emphasis on allowing young people to be employed even if they don't have that that experience.
Thank you very much for those thoughts there. That's Heidi Giokos. Now,